Hello lovelies, my name is Eric and welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome as well to A Wizard Wonders, which is a series on my channel where I talk about things and may never bring them up again. This might not be a topic that I revisit, although in this instance I think it might be. Today's topic, of course, is light language. This is something that I've been interested in for a little while now because it keeps on popping up in like my news feed and at psychic fairs and all that sort of thing. I'm just seeing it so much more and more all the time. And I'm actually thinking that maybe the solution to the questions and issues that I'm going to raise in this video might be best answered by somebody in that community. And I have someone in mind, so depending on their willingness to participate as well as the breadth of their knowledge, if they're familiar with the questions that I'm asking, I might ask them to do a bit of an interview with me and to actually talk through some of this stuff and get somebody's perspective who's actually part of that community. Because from now, I'm talking about this from an outsider's perspective. I don't necessarily have any interest in partaking or doing light language, but it is something I'm interested in from sort of an academic kind of standpoint. So that's sort of what I want to talk about in this video. So this might be the rare occasion where I will actually bring this up again and turn this into a conversation with somebody. But of course, if you're a light worker, or sorry, a light language worker, which I think is still a subsect of light workers, but if you're in the light language community, if you have any thoughts or any opinions or want to comment on anything that I have to say in this video, please leave your comments below, because it's definitely something that I'm really interested in at the moment. That said, let's jump into some of the stuff that I've found through my research and talk a little bit about this light language stuff. So maybe the first question is, what is light language? And I've asked a few people this, I've read a few testimonials online to see what people are saying. And it seems to be, the idea is that there is divine light, celestial light, or not always celestial, but divine. So this is some sort of like energetic model stuff, I think, and that people are tuning into the frequencies of certain celestial bodies, entities, sublunar beings, all that sort of thing. So there is definitely that channeling aspect. So people are drawing in this divine light and transmuting that into sound and gesture. I didn't realize about the gesture at first, but they have what they call doodling, where they create sort of gestural movements with their hands. So that seems to be part of the intuitive process of communicating this light language, which I didn't realize at first. I thought it was purely just that sound-based stuff, but it seems that there's actually this gestural aspect as well. Interestingly enough, so light language seems to be split up into the verbal and gestural component, but also into a written form. Now this either appears as intuitive sigils, so nonsensical, uninterpretable kind of symbols or sigils, and also a, what's the word I'm looking for, diminutive, maybe, approach of breaking down images into simplified form. So if anybody's seen that Chaos Magic text where it has the image of a puppet stuck with pins and then it's broken down into like a stick figure kind of thing, that seems to be part of the approach as well. So one of the earliest websites that I found had a book which was a collection of these gifts, these, not gifts, these glyphs that sort of have certain properties or certain powers, allegedly. I was concerned about this one publication that I found with these simplified pictorial glyphs. Sorry, I've got the dogs out the window. Barking of dogs means Hecate's near. So I found this book with these glyphs in it, and I was a bit concerned because some of them were for things like, you know, mending broken bones, some were for removing vaccines from the body, which, you know, that anti-vaxxer stuff is a bit concerning. So there was that one website that seemed a bit dubious to me, but it was also the oldest website that I've looked at so far. I'm going to be completely useless academically because I'm not going to provide any sources, because it was a few days ago that I was looking at this stuff, and I don't have the web address links anymore for all the stuff that I was looking at, so I'm sorry if you were hoping to find some resources in this video, but I'm probably not going to be able to provide that. This is just me rambling about what I've learned and what I've found, and what my sort of thoughts are based on what I have read so far. But like I say, I am hoping to find somebody who actually knows about the movement in this light language community to see if they can actually answer some of these questions that I'm posing in this video. Or some of the topics, at least, some of the things that I'm talking about. Now, interestingly enough, some of these websites do claim that the mechanics of what's happening here is the same as other groups who are speaking in tongues. However, there are some that say that it's not the same. But I think that seems to be based on what the perception is of what's being channeled. So one person that I spoke to said that what they were doing was at a higher vibration than Christians who are invoking the Holy Spirit. But of course, to them, there is no higher vibration, right? There is no higher vibration than the Holy Spirit. So that is the limit of ecstasy for their sect. So to say that, you know, you're working at a vibration that's higher. Over the last weekend, I was at a psychic fair, and a few people were talking about, like, 5th dimensions and 7th dimensions and all this sort of stuff. And at first, I thought they were talking, like, from, like, a Kabbalistic kind of perspective or something like that, where they were, like, moving up these levels in the same way you would move up the tree of life. But I'm not really sure that that's what they mean anymore. There is also talk, so these light language where it's like the written stuff, they're often called codes, but there seems to be, through this like spoken language aspect, they talk about how there is an aspect of sacred geometry in that. So I don't know if they mean like the beats to which they're vocalizing, or what it is that they're talking about when it comes to sacred geometry, because to me it doesn't seem to be the same sacred geometry that I was taught or that I learned when we're looking at like the sacred geometrician of the universe and all these sorts of things. Grand geometrician of the universe, I should say. So it seems to be a little bit different in that respect as well. So I'm not really sure that I understand how they're using a lot of these things that, to me at least, from an outsider perspective, just sound like a lot of buzzwords. They don't really sound like they have much substance. I don't really understand what the metaphysics is behind what they're sort of putting forward, because it's not things that I'm familiar with from sort of the Western mystery tradition that I've interacted with. So it's very hard to say what it is that they're trying to achieve here. There does seem to be a couple of themes that are consistent. So, like I said before, it's through the channeling of entities, or the energies of entities, that this light language seems to be transmuted. But also, this can sometimes be extraterrestrial. I heard somebody over the weekend talking about the Galactic Federation. You know, I get a bit stuck when it comes to the UFO stuff, I really do. And even though I've had some interaction with what could be considered extraterrestrial intelligences, I don't necessarily think about it like that. Like, to me, I come from that very, like, Gnostic kind of view where, like, the planets are sort of the heavens and, you know, all that sort of thing. So, to me, like, these intergalactic federations that are happening, it seems a bit, you know, curious to me, bit strange, not really what I'm doing, but, you know, again, in my previous video about And at Harm None, I do talk about how important it is that we raise each other up, rather than trying to put each other down. So that's definitely not what I'm trying to do in this video. Even though, to me, and from my training and my experience, this stuff doesn't make a whole lot of sense, that's why I'm talking about it, because I do want answers to these questions. I'm not just trying to poo-poo light language, which is why I'm really interested in having someone come on the channel who does know about this stuff, who can talk about where the movement came from. Over the weekend I was told that this is an ancient thing that's been done for millions of years, but, you know, my interest is, like, who called it light language? Where did that start? They tried to tell me that the first light language was Sanskrit, but that answer seems inadequate to me, because from what I've found on these resources, most of these people seem to be saying that light language is something that was spirit taught to them, and that it's intuitive, and that it's understood on a soul level, and that it can't be translated back and forth. There's no dictionary of these light languages, because there does seem to be more than one. It's like every person has their own, or something, so I'm not really sure what the go is there. But there seems to be all these different spirits that they're working with, and all these different things. Sirius seems to be quite popular, the Lights of Orion, Lights of Orion, activate! Sorry, if anybody gets that reference, you deserve a cookie. So there's different things. Also, the god Thoth seems to be quite popular among them. I do get concerned, though, because some of these people that I've been seeing, their websites, you know, the first ones that come up when you Google light language, or look it up on Google, they don't like it being a verb, but when you look that up on Google, the first ones that come up, a lot of them offer these, like, workshops or pre-recordings that will unlock your inner light language and all this sort of stuff. And some of these people are charging like hundreds of dollars for these services, which is kind of concerning to me. I don't think that for a spirit-taught system, you should be charging exorbitant amounts of money. I think if you have a UPG or an SPG, that's a unverified personal gnosis or a shared personal gnosis, so these are beliefs that are shared among this particular sect, I don't think you should be charging for that, especially if it's a spirit-taught system. I think giving the people the steps that you went through is beneficial to them to emulate those steps, but I don't think that you should be charging people for initiation into your SPG. I think that's a bit wrong, to be honest. In my SPG systems, especially with Digimon and stuff like that, you know, we've never had an exchange of money for training or teaching, because we understand that this is something that exists purely among our sect, and may not be of value or legitimate even to some other people. And so for us, it was always very important that we shared information freely, which is why that group, although it's disbanded now, was always a social setting first. We didn't have a structured learning system, which I do think sometimes was to our detriment. But, you know, it was an SPG. It wasn't something structured. It wasn't something with rules and guidelines in that way. And of course, I have tried to do my best to sort of put that forward in ways that other people can interact with it without needing contact with that community, which no longer exists. As sometimes happens, you know, communities break down. It is a thing that happens, and that's totally okay. It seems though with this light language, and also with the codes that are used, the light language sigils that they have, they don't seem to be created in the same way as what Austin Osman Spare kind of popularized, you know, my husband in another life. His process of sort of breaking things down into, like breaking a phrase down into a sigilized form, which came from Agrippa originally, that doesn't seem to be what's happening in this light language. It seems to be more of an automatic drawing. That's what it is. Automatic drawing kind of thing. So it's just putting pen to paper and seeing what sigils and symbols come through. So it's all channeled. It's all very much along that line, and I think that that's fine. But like I say, you know, if you're working in a UPG or an SPG, I think it's important to be open and upfront about that. Talk about its true roots instead of trying to claim it as some ancient thing. Because like I was saying before, you know, if the earliest light language was Sanskrit, which is what some of these people claim, Sanskrit follows linguistic rules, just as every other human language does, and this light language stuff doesn't seem to do that. So I'm not satisfied with the answer that those two things are exactly the same, because I really don't think that they are. I do appreciate, though, that, like, especially from that sort of Gnostic or biblical kind of perspective, you know, there's the story of the Nephilim who came down to teach humans magic and all that sort of thing, and that it was spirit taught in that way, and I think that's fine. You know, they taught us how to make tools and all this sort of stuff, and like, I'm happy to believe that. I'm happy to believe that these early humans who were figuring this stuff out probably did get it through spirit interaction and being guided by intuition or, you know, some sort of spiritual forces. But to me, like, especially in this day and age, I need that concrete evidence. I need that understandable history of a movement. You know, even systems like Wicca have really dubious histories, because there's so much like, oh yeah, my grandmother was a witch kind of stuff, and like, it's fine, like, a lot of that was just played for laughs, I think. You know, you look at Alex Sanders and him, like, raising a spirit, raising a body from the dead and all this sort of stuff, like, they were leg pullers, and that's totally fine, and even Gerald Gardner sort of put that forward. So it's hard to say how much is legit and how much is sort of made up for the public's enjoyment. So I do have that question there, in relation to those things. Like, a lot of these histories aren't quite as clear-cut as we would like. But to me, this seems to be a modern movement. Everywhere that I could find say they haven't been doing it for more than 10 years. So I'd be interested, because I can't seem to find any academic references or academic writings on this topic either. So again, if you do have any information that you want to share about light language, where the movement came from, who's part of the movement, who's not part of the movement, is it a subsection of light workers? The last time I recorded this video, I did switch up the words light work and light language, so I may have done that in this video too, just talking off the cuff. But if I did, forgive me, I did mean light language when I said light workers. But yeah, if the light workers and the light language are the same, you know, what's the go there? I'm very interested to know. So I'm going to touch base with one person that I know does light language, and see if they can answer any of these questions or give any thoughts on this topic. So hopefully I will have a video with that out soon if they comply. But like I say, this is the reason for this video, and the reason for this series rather, is so that I can talk about things without the obligation of touching it ever again. So if that video never comes out, that's why. This is why it's part of this series, because I may never talk about this again. But it's something that's caught my interest. I'm very keen to get some more information on it. If you guys have any books or resources, actually, publications that I can look at, that would be really interesting to me too. But I think that's all I really wanted to say in this video. I hope that you guys have learned something, or at the very least, had a bit of fun listening to me ramble. So until I speak to you next time, I hope that you're all well. Mwah. Bye.